Chairman invites them to speak. All members of the press and public will remain muted unless they have registered to speak, and the Chairman will let them know when they can make their presentation. If members of the public can make sure that their mute button is on, and then you can unmute yourself when the Chairman brings you forward. The format of the meeting will be as per the agenda published, and a copy of the officer presentations can be found on the committee webpage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I also welcome you to this Development Committee? I'm Councillor Filmer, I'm Chairman of the committee. Just a few bit of background as to how the committee will operate today, so that everyone knows how we're moving ahead. So we'll have each application taken in turn. The officers will outline the detail and background of the application. There'll then be a public speaking time. Members will then debate and then decide on the application before them. For members of the committee wishing to speak, can I just remind you that if you could indicate via the online chat facility so that we can actually see when you're wanting to speak, and once you indicate on there, I will then call you to address the committee. During the debate, there will be a proposer and a seconder for each resolution. Members will vote on this proposal in turn, and they will need to confirm that they have been present throughout the application being considered and will vote for, against, or abstain. The votes will then be counted and we'll announce the result. I'll now ask the officers and councillors who will be taking part in the meeting this morning to confirm that they can see and hear me and to introduce themselves. So if we start with the planning officers, Dawn de Vries, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. My name is Dawn de Vries. I can confirm I can see and hear everyone. I'm the Principal Planning Officer for the West, and I'll be lead officer for the meeting.
Thank you. Liam Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm Liam Evans. I'm a planning officer for the West team, and I can see and hear everybody.
Thank you. Shanta Parsons.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Shanta Parsons. I'm a senior planning officer. I can see and hear everything.
Thank you. And Amelia Elvey.
Thank you, Chairman. My name's Amelia Elvey. I'm a planning officer for the West team, and I can confirm that I can see and hear everybody.
Thank you. From our legal services, Dawn Lehman.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Dawn Lehman. I'm legal advisor to the committee, and I can confirm that I can see and hear everything. Thank you.
Thank you. From our democratic services, Leila Nicholson.
Good morning, Chairman and everybody. My name's Leila Nicholson. I'm the committee manager for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if we then come to the members of the committee, we'll start with Graham Granter. Councillor Granter.
Yes, good morning, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Yes, my name is Councillor Graham Granter, Fairfax Ward at Bridgewater. I can confirm I can hear and see everybody loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Glassford. No, we'll move on. We'll come back to Councillor Glassford. Councillor Pearce.
Good morning. Yes, Councillor Cathy Pearce, Westover Ward, Bridgewater, and I confirm I can see and hear everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson.
Hello, yeah, good morning. Councillor Lee Gibson, Eastover, Bridgewater, and I can hear and see at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Scott.
Dear. Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Yes, it's Councillor Liz Scott here from Axvale Ward near Axbridge, and I can confirm I can see and hear everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hendry.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Sedgemoor District Councillor Alistair Hendry, Burnham-on-Sea Central. I can hear and see everything. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Councillor Facey.
Good morning, Chairman. Councillor Mike Facey, Burnham-on-Sea North. I can confirm I can see and hear everyone. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Revens.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, colleagues. Councillor Bill Revens, North Petherton Ward, confirming I can see and hear everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Kingham.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, everybody. My name is Stuart Kingham, District Councillor for the West Poldens, and I can hear and see all.
Councillor Bradford.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee members. Good morning, officers. Councillor Alan Bradford, representing North Petherton Ward, and I can see and hear and care everybody.
Councillor Bolt.
Good morning, everybody. Brian Bolt, Ward Councillor for Cannington and Wemden. I can see and hear the meeting.
Councillor Perry.
Yes, good morning, thank you. Councillor Liz Perry, representing Kings Isle Ward, and I can confirm I can hear and see everything.
Councillor Grimes.
Good morning, everybody. Councillor Tony Grimes, Deputy Chairman, Barrow and Bream Ward. I can see and hear everything. Thank you.
Thank you. We just go back to Councillor Glassford. Is Councillor Glassford with us? Not at the moment. Okay. And I'm Councillor Filmer, as I mentioned at the beginning. I'm chairman of the committee, and I have seen and heard all the responses from officers and members. We'd just also mention that we have with us a number of members of the public, some of whom are registered to speak, also some of whom are here just to observe. We also have members of the council with us, including the portfolio holder for development. If we move on then, members, to the actual agenda itself today. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Mrs Nicholson, do we have any apologies, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I've received apologies from Councillor Murphy.
Thank you. And I think the only other member that's not accounted for then is Councillor Glassford, and we'll hopefully see if Councillor Glassford can join us later. Item 2 on your agenda, members, are the minutes of previous meetings. If we take these in turn, the first set of minutes that you've had circulated is the 9th of June 2020. If I could ask if there are any amendments to those minutes that members have. I'm not seeing any reactions, so are members happy that I take those minutes as a true and accurate record? Again, if anyone can indicate that they are not in agreement with that. No, so that's clearly carried. The second, Mr. Councillor Kingham. Councillor Kingham?
Yeah, I was going to move the minutes, Chairman.
That's fine. Okay. Councillor Grant, I'll come to you in just a moment for declarations of interest. We've got those on as item 5 today, so we'll take those after we've dealt with the minutes. So the second set of minutes that we have before us is the 4th of August. Again, if I could ask members if there are any amendments to those minutes. I'm not seeing anything. So again, are members happy that we accept those as a true and accurate record? Again, if you can indicate if you disagree with that, please. Nope, so that is clearly carried. And the third set of minutes was for the 18th of August. Are there any amendments to those? Again, I'm not seeing any amendments. So if members are happy that we sign those as a true and accurate record, anyone to the contrary, please indicate. I'm again seeing nothing on that, so that is clearly carried as well. So that moves us on to item 3, which is urgent business. I've not been informed of any urgent business that isn't covered by our current agenda. Item 4 is public speaking time. For members of the public, for those of you who have registered to speak this morning, we'll take each application in turn. The officers, as I've mentioned before, will outline the background and detail to the application, and then speakers will be invited to address the committee. We'll need you then at that point to enable your microphone, and you will then have 3 minutes to address the committee. You should hear, when there's 1 minute of that time to go, a bell. And Mrs Nicholson, are you able to demonstrate interest? It means that a member may have some knowledge of an application, but not to a point that it would prejudice their views when they come to debate it, vote on an application. If they have a prejudicial interest, as the name implies, it would mean that they would potentially be prejudiced by their involvement in an application. It may be that they are a close friend or a relation of an applicant or an objector, and based on that, they declare that interest, they would have to leave the room and take no part in the discussion or the decision. And where you've heard members talking about predetermination, we have a standing order within the committee which basically says that in order to make sure that members can come to this meeting clearly with an open mind on an application that they can either get involved at the district level at this committee, or they can be involved at the town or parish level, but they can't do both. So if they have been involved at the town or parish level and been involved in the decision, then they would not take part in the decision today. Where you've heard they have not been predetermined, then they can again be part of that decision and be part of the vote as well. Councillor Granter, I think you've shared your screen with us. I think you're actually, as I say, we're seeing what's on your screen at the moment. That's perfect. Thank you. And moves us on to the next item on the agenda, which are the planning applications themselves. The first application we have before us is the application on page 1 in Bridgewater. So if you could turn to that page, please. And if I could ask the officer to introduce this first application, that would be most appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This application was deferred from the previous planning committee. The application is to change the use of an existing hairdressers on West Quay to a hot food takeaway. The works will include the installation of extraction equipment to the rear elevation and internal works to the property. The application was deferred from the previous committee due to the members requesting a waste management plan, and this has been provided since that meeting, and I'll update members now. The update is at the top of the report on page 1, and basically the application has been amended to include an internal food, waste storage area for the use of the premises. So if I take members through the slides again, the application site is located here, indicated by the grey circle, located on West Quay, and is located within the secondary retail frontage of Bridgewater Town Centre. The site itself is indicated by the red box here, and would see the change of use taking place there. These are the existing internal layout and elevations, so there are no changes proposed within this scheme for the shop front. The only change is to the rear, with the extraction equipment going above the eaves level of the existing roof. These plans have been amended since the previous application, since the previous committee meeting, and this now confirms that the waste, rather than being stored externally, will be stored internally via a bin store that will be created at the rear of the premises here. This will be linked to the extraction equipment and will also include a fire door and the blocking in of a window, as well as providing a smoke alarm within that part of the premises there. So this will be linked internally with no requirement for external waste storage. In terms of how the waste will be dealt with, this will be collected by twice weekly by contract, and this will take into account all bin storage and recyclable materials. In terms of any oil that will be removed from the premises, this will be dealt with via a contract as well, and this will be done twice weekly, as this was an issue that was raised at the previous meeting. In all other aspects, the application remains as previously presented. So this is the existing shop front, which is due to remain as existing. This is the view along West Quay, and this gives an indication of the existing units that are currently operating along there at the moment. So it just gives you a broad idea of the variation in types of uses along the secondary retail frontage within the town centre. In terms of principle, the application is considered to be acceptable as the change of use to this particular premises will not result in a concentration of single takeaway uses along West Quay, and is considered there as sufficient variation in terms of uses at ground floor level to ensure the vitality and viability of this particular area of the town centre will not be compromised by the development itself. This is the view of the rear of the premises, and this is the location of the only external works that are proposed in terms of the location of the proposed extraction unit equipment on the back of the premises. It's not considered this will have a significant visual impact on the surrounding area, taking into account the setback position of the building from the street scene. Overall, it's considered that the proposal will be in keeping with the character and variation of uses within the town centre, and the bringing back of the existing vacant unit into a active use is considered to enhance the character of the West Quay frontage, as well as providing an alternative use along that side. Therefore, the recommendation is to grant consent. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We have a couple of speakers on this first application. So the first one of those we have is Ward Councillor, Councillor Smedley. Councillor Smedley, if you could enable your camera and microphone and just confirm it's working.
Well, my camera's on and my microphone's on now as well.
Excellent, we can now hear you. So start when you're ready and we'll hear the bell go when there's 1 minute of time left to go.
Thank you very much. So at the committee in November, I spoke to members on behalf of all the neighbours, all the many neighbours that live in that area, made the point that this application was universally unwanted. It's out of keeping with the quayside, and the preferred route would be to ask the applicant to go back and look at something else to put there more in keeping. Nobody wants a late evening takeaway in that location. At that meeting, you deferred the decision so the applicant make his case about some of the issues in particular relating to waste management. And this now refers to indoor storage, bin area, fire resistant doors and smoke detectors, a ventilation system and oil stored on site and removed twice weekly. Residents and others remain unhappy about this and of the belief that the measures suggested are not appropriate and that the project should be scrapped and a different solution should be sought. The basic problem is that in trying to address the waste management issues, even more fears are being heightened, in particular safety and fire risk in an area where residents live above and around these premises. At the last meeting, planners discovered that the proposed back exit would not be possible because the guy who owns Castle House objects on the grounds of right-of-way. And the trouble is that this right-of-way issue is now a major consideration. And in order to satisfy this requirement, the 8 flats in that block have to now shoulder the risk of having a potential tinderbox inside the building. In addition to the storage of hazardous waste, this new takeaway outlet proposed to install mains gas, and at present there's no mains gas supply in the building. Fire doors and smoke alarms are not going to help a fire spreading upwards through the ceilings or sideways, and we feel this is a totally unacceptable solution. All that highly noxious inflammable waste stored internally constitutes a highly unpleasant and significant fire risk hazard underneath residents and to the whole building. And people have to inform their insurers of this increased risk, and this will have an effect on the overall buildings insurance, individuals' contents insurance, etc. The proposed fire-resistant door and smoke detectors don't give residents much comfort in that fire doors and smoke detectors don't stop fires. They just maybe give people extra time to evacuate the building. In addition, they're expected to be happy to have waste collection vehicles picking up stored highly flammable waste twice a week from outside of the pedestrianised West Quay. The point remains that people still think it's the wrong type of business for this area and add to the problem of late night noise. The area is identified by the police as the #1 priority for antisocial behaviour, and if we're going to work in partnership with the police and other agencies, we need to have some joined up thinking on this. So the residents are really unhappy about the extra risk provided by this so-called waste management solution. It's not really a solution. They don't feel reassured that the waste will be disposed of properly. They don't feel reassured that people gathered around the takeaway will be manageable at late night. They're not happy about the idea of cooking smells and disturbances of that. And they're particularly unhappy about the increased fire hazard. It's a listed building. It's very old, very dry timber involved. If this takeaway caught fire, it'd mean the tenants at the end of the building would be unable to use their fire escape, and the residents have, electric heating because they don't use gas in that area. They don't believe the issue of the pedestrianisation has been taken into account, and vehicles that are only allowed in the pedestrian area of West Quay between 8 and 10 a.m. It remains of continued frustration with Somerset County Council as to how these vehicles are monitored. And so I ask you one more time to bring an end to this application, to reject it, and instead to work with the owner and the applicant to come up with an occupancy for this unit that is in keeping with the street and does not terrify the residents.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, members, we have a second speaker, and I believe it's Mr. Chowdhury, who is the agent for the application. Mr. Chowdhury, if you could enable your microphone, please, and just confirm that it's working.
Good morning, everybody. Hopefully my microphone is working and everybody can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, we can. Thank you very much. So again, just to remind you, you've got the 3 minutes to address the committee, and you'll hear the bell when there's 1 minute of that time left to go. Please start.
Thank you. So in regards with the fire risk assessment, we will fall under the same category as the other businesses there, including the Cafe Cream and the Green Olive. The fire measures that we have taken, we have used double density fiberboard, which provides a 60-minute fire escape option on the ceilings and both of the sides on the left and right. Our responsibility in terms of fire risk management is only to our neighbors on the left and on the right and the flats directly above us, which we have taken care of. In terms of the waste management, compared to the other food outlets on the strip, our food wastage will actually be the least. The only thing that, in terms of oil, the only thing that we'll be actually frying is chips, and the oil you need to use for chips is actually a very low amount. The rest of the waste that we will actually be producing would be packaging waste, plastics, cardboards, these kind of things, you know, in sauces and chicken that will come in. So these will be collected and they will be recycled as well. You know, we have an active vision in helping the wider community as well as the, you know, global impact. We want to have a minimum carbon footprint as much as possible. In terms of, you know, this is a commercial property as it is already. There is a mixed use property. There will be fire route escapes already provided to the residents, at least there should be, which I believe there is round to the back. And in terms of how we will actually help to revitalize or kind of engage this particular part of Bridgewater, I think having a wide variety of different types of businesses will do that automatically. Late night, the concern regarding late night, Green Olive stays open up until 9 p.m. Furthermore, ours is more of a delivery service business as well, so we shouldn't be expecting a lot of foot traffic coming our way. Most of it will be through deliveries. And the foot traffic that we will get will be in a similar range as American Nails, as well as, you know, the cafes and the hair lounge. You know, we're not going to get that much foot traffic. And now with COVID-19, a lot of people are not going to be collecting their food either. It's going to be more of a no contact delivery service that we will be providing. I hope that answers all of your questions that Mr. Councillor Spentley had, and I hope it kind of assures everybody that, you know, we are on the right track and that this place should be granted for those various reasons. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any comments or questions, please? I'm not seeing any items in the. Yep, Councillor Pearce, please.
Sorry, Chairman, I couldn't find the right button. Yeah, I mean, this seems to be a rather bizarre means of addressing the waste problem. I'm assuming that the other food businesses or other businesses have the large wheelie bins. I mean, is it really the intention, or is it? That's a question I need to ask. How will the waste be removed from the shop? I mean, if it's a wheelie bin, I can't understand how a wheelie bin would be brought through the front entrance twice a week. The introduction of gas does concern me with the close proximity of the flats above and nearby. The report alludes to similar businesses in Eastover as though they do not cause a problem, and there are regular waste problems, food-related waste problems. So I worry that the introduction of another similar business along West Quay will cause similar problems. The late night opening is a concern. There are problems already around the Townbridge area, and I fear these will exacerbate them. And also the nature of the business being a takeaway. I mean, in another chicken related outlet in Westover Ward, there has historically been problems of greasy pavements, and this can be resolved by good management, but I've continued to have concerns about this proposal. So I'd be grateful if the waste disposal could be further explained, please.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Are you able to answer those comments, please?
Yep. So yeah, thank you for your comments. So
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Chowdhury. I can't come back to you. It's because you can only do the introduction that you've done. It's Mr. Evans, the case officer, that will need to answer the questions.
Sorry, my apologies.
But no problem at all. But thank you, Mr. Evans.
Yes, I mean, in terms of the details we have, those are set out at the top of the report on page 1, and I think were explained further by Mr. Chowdhury in his presentation. I don't have any details about what type of bin will be used for the storage of materials, but as Mr. Chowdhury alluded to, we are looking at packaging materials, and we're looking at the recycling materials that you're probably expected to find from a business that has packaging coming in with the food, etc., that would be used in the sort of day-to-day running of that business. This would be collected twice weekly as set out. What form the actual containers will take, I do not have that detail, but we do have a broad location of where the storage will be. Obviously, members were concerned at the previous meeting about an outside wheelie bin being used at a distance from the premises. So the applicant has gone the other way and brought the materials and the storage of those materials into the building with the necessary equipment to ensure that fire safety can be managed and the risk kept to a minimum through the use of smoke detectors and fire doors, etc. So that's the information we have and has been presented with since the previous meeting.
Thank you. Mrs. De Vries, I think you wanted to comment as well.
Yeah, it was just on the use class and the gas point that was raised by the councillor. Obviously, gas going into a building is put in by gas specialists that need to be certified to ensure that they can do it safely. It's not something we can consider as part of the planning application, but it is certified by its own separate process. So the fact that there is gas going into the building shouldn't be a concern or a consideration for members for this application. In terms of the use as well, because we did get bogged down a little bit about this in the last meeting, the application that's before members is the general use class of the building, not the specific takeaway function that's being currently proposed. So the use that you're looking at is an A5 or now sui generis on the generic use class purposes. So the question to members is that currently the building is vacant. Currently, under the D18 policy, there is support for sort of A1 to A5 uses in secondary retail frontages, as long as there's not a concentration of those particular uses. In terms of how any particular A5 use would be managed or operated, that's down to the site-specific operator, and again, not something we can consider as part of the application. So what members have to focus on is whether a redundant vacant building in a secondary retail frontage is appropriate, or if not, whether an alternative use such as an A5 or, as it's now called, sui generis use would be more acceptable in terms of vitality and viability of the secondary retail frontage area. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a number of speakers who've indicated. I've got Councillors Revens, then Hendry, then Grimes, and then Councillor Pearce again. So if we come to Councillor Revens first, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. 3 questions from me. First of all, a clarification on the fire safety point. My understand, well, what is the position of planning in terms of policy on fire safety in buildings, particularly concerned about the flats above? Secondly, comment to be made about antisocial behaviour. I can't see a comment from the Avon and Somerset Police in the report. Has a comment been sought, and what was the response, please? And in terms of policy B18, can I ask how this application enhances the town centre, please?
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. If we go to the issue of B18, I believe this is covered at the bottom of the section on the principle of the development. Again, I touched upon it, but didn't go into any great detail in my speech at the beginning, but we're obviously looking at the town centre as a key destination and the regeneration and the enhancement of the setting of the River Parrett, and that's alluded to in policy B18. I mean, in this case, we consider that because the shop currently remains vacant and has done so for much of the year, that bringing it back into an active use would positively contribute to that town centre function. And we're not looking at a development that is going to have a detrimental impact on the setting of the River Parrett based upon the fact that we have very little in the way of changes being made to the frontage of the building itself. So we're not looking at something that visually is going to compromise the setting of the pedestrianised area along the River Parrett. With regards to antisocial behaviour, we haven't sought a comment from the Avon and Somerset Police on this application. Again, this is going down to the management of the site itself. The site is also adjacent to a number of businesses and within an area where there are late night openings for a number of similar compatible uses. The site itself is adjacent to the Fountain Inn, which obviously has a late night opening times as well, in line with a number of public houses within the town centre. I believe in the previous meeting, I believe Dawn covered a section on fire safety, which I'm not sure if Dawn wants to comment on that, but I believe that there was a comment from the building control team prior to the meeting last time.
Mrs. De Vries, would you like to comment on the fire risks and fire safety?
Yeah, thank you. Just in terms of the fire safety, it is something that's covered by building regulations. Because it's a change of use, building regulations application to be required, and the applicant would be required to ensure that the change of use would be safe from a sort of fire risk perspective. He did set out in his speech in terms of what measures are being put in place, and we did discuss in depth the escape route from the actual takeaway itself in the last meeting, which is compliant with the minimal distances that were specified in the building regs requirements. Just very briefly on the crime and design perspective as well, whilst the comment hasn't been sought, it's a change of use of an existing building, so nothing's changed in terms of built form. What the crime and design comments usually sort of respond to is sort of where you can see spaces, how defensible spaces are, what the issues are in terms of whether you can see people coming and going, whether there's any sort of dark corners people can lurk in, that type of thing. There's no changes to the physical appearance of the building. So there's nothing different from what there currently is. And Westquay is quite an open and quite visible space. And there's one means of entrance and exit to this site. So it's quite a defensible space from a crime and design perspective. But they wouldn't necessarily comment on just a change of use application.
Thank you. I've got then, as I say, Councillors Hendry, Grimes and Pearce. So Councillor Hendry.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Can I just mention that my online chat on the right-hand box is not working? Okay, just so you know that. Okay, moving on. A lot of things been said on here. I'd just like to pick up on a few myself. The opening hours of this place until 12 o'clock midnight seems to be a sore point for quite a few people. It's actually quite normal because Oscars, Shan's Peri Peri, Domino's, Elachi, all these kind of stuff all stay open until midnight. And in fact, Domino's is until 2 a.m. in the morning. So I don't see that as any problem at all. Further, it's all very well having tables outside on the pavement, as been spoke about, but with the COVID situation as we have, a lot of people would say to you, it's actually better having a takeaway where you walk in, get your food, and leave. Around Burnham-on-Sea, every place I know is doing that. They don't have tables to sit on when you go to the Chinese or anything else. Everybody just takes their food and leave. So that's the way it should be, as far as I'm concerned. The street scene is unchanged. The place exactly next door to it has got exactly the same street scene, so that's fine with all that. Yes, there's a thing about the air extraction, the odour control and the noise, which apparently will be advised and activated, but that's not a deal breaker to actually stop the application going through. The pubs, the cafes, the restaurants, the takeaways, which are already there on the same street, okay, are absolutely all within the same standing. There's nothing to choose between them. Further, policy D18 is very, very clear. With secondary retail frontage for ground floor retail and non-retail will be supported, that's the important part there, will be supported providing they do not result in single usage. So all in all, there is no valid reason here to put the block on this and stop it. As regarding fire, the applicant stated quite clearly everything they've done for that. The case officer, Don DeFries, also, no, it's not the case officer, but Don DeFries mentioned as well that it complies with fire regulations. Bottom line, I don't see any problem with this at all, Mr. Chairman. And yeah, that's it. That's what I have to say. Thank you for this moment.
Thank you. Councillor Grimes.
The point about the possibility of people driving to the site. Obviously, it is very rare for a takeaway facility to have a dedicated off-road parking facility, and obviously the existing use as a hairdresser's also doesn't have its own parking facility. So in some respects, it's not unusual for a town centre location such as this and a takeaway use not to rely upon the existing facilities within the street itself. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I think Councillor Scott, you've indicated.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Coming back on that point, is there any difference between a takeaway as far as planning permissions concerned, a takeaway and a delivery service? Because I think that's what the applicant actually said. They were going to do more deliveries. So in which case they will need actually a parking space for their delivery vans or whatever to park so they can collect. That was the issue I was concerned about.
Mr. Evans or Mrs. DeVries, you've indicated you want to come in. Is that on the issue of use class?
It's more, there isn't a change in terms of the use class. It's an A5 use class, whether it's people walking in or if it's delivery, because delivery will be an ancillary element of the fact it's an A5 use or now sui generis use. In terms of parking, there is also a public car park not too far away from this site. So if there was need for more permanent spaces for staff, if staff were going to have vehicles that need to carry out deliveries, I think there's a public car park just at the back of the job centre, just slightly further up the road. So it's maybe double the distance that Liam was talking about. But if someone needed access to sort of more permanent spaces that would have less of an impact in the absence of any available spaces nearby, it would be assumed that they'd be using the public car park.
Thank you. And I think the last comment I've got here at the moment is from Councillor Gibson.
Yeah, what Councillor Scott said about the delivery vans along there just park along West Quay, basically. And I don't know if you've witnessed what's going on at the moment with the pick up quick and get out on the chicken shop on the High Street, and the Blake Fish Bar, where there's just cars idling with their engines on. It's just car zone. It's just a car war zone all around there, and this is what will happen around the bridge, I think.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other comments or questions from members coming through on the chat. So if there are no further comments or questions, we do have a recommendation that has been moved and seconded, which was, I think, proposed by Councillor Grimes, seconded by Councillor Hendry, which was to grant permission in line with the officer's recommendation. I'll come round to members individually for their votes. So if you can again, please indicate that you've been present throughout the debate and what your vote is, please. And we'll start with Councillor Granter.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I can confirm that I've been listened to and seen the whole of the debate, and on this occasion I am going to abstain. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Councillor Glassford with us?
Chairman, he is. Only came in halfway through the meeting or through this application.
So if
but
we record
I understand
that.
he is in now.
Okay. Can I just confirm with Councillor Glassford that you can see and hear what's taking place in the meeting now?
Yes, good morning everyone. Sorry about that. Bit of a problem getting in. I'm okay now, yes.
That's
I can
okay.
see and hear, and I can see and hear you.
Excellent. And we'll record you on this particular application as being absent for part of the debate. Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've seen and heard the whole debate and I am against the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson.
Yeah, thank you. I've seen and heard the whole debate and I'm against the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've seen and heard the whole debate, and I feel I'm against this application. Thank you.
Councillor Hendry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've seen and heard everything, and I'm very much for the application. No problem with it at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Facey.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Seen and heard the complete debate, Chairman, and I am going to abstain, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Revens.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Seen and heard the whole debate, and my vote is against. Thank you.
Councillor Kingham.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've heard and seen the whole debate, and I am for.
Thank you. Councillor Bradford.
I have heard the whole debate, Mr. Chairman, and I am against.
Councillor Bolt.
I've been present for the whole debate and I'm for the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've seen and heard the whole debate and I'm against.
Thank you. Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, seen and heard the whole debate and I'm for.
Thank you. And I've also seen and heard the whole debate and I'm also for. So, Mr. Nicholson, if you could work out the voting, please.
Apologies, Chairman. It's a little less straightforward than normal. Okay, I have got 5 in support of the recommendation, 6 against, 2 abstentions, 1 not present, lost connection.
Okay, so that recommendation is lost. I'm therefore going to be looking for an alternative recommendation with the valid planning reasons, please. For those members who, thank you very much, who's that? That's Councillor Pearce. If you'd like to then make a proposition.
Well, I will make the proposition that it's contrary to policy D25, and that's protecting the local residential amenity.
Mr. Evans or Mrs. DeVries, do you want to comment on that as a reason for refusal?
Could it just be expanded on in terms of how it conflicts with D25?
Because D25, sorry, I'm just trying to find the relevant part here.
So in terms of the bullet points for D25,
Yeah,
it
sorry.
does say particular consideration should be given
Yeah,
to.
sorry. Yeah, I've found the bit I was looking for. So D25 seeks to protect the amenity of occupants in nearby properties from noise, disturbance and odours. I think it will be contrary to that policy on all fronts. The noise from people coming to the takeaway, it's next door to a pub. I think there will be noise generated by people, by customers, a disturbance, and certainly from odours, and also I think the disturbance will be of a environmental nature from the waste as well.
Okay.
Thank you. I've also got Councillor Evans wanting to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to second Councillor Pearce's motion, and can I add that I don't believe that this enhances the setting of the River Parrot, which is policy B18. If she'd be willing to accept that amendment, please.
Yes, I certainly would. I think the fact that it's in a heritage area, that is very relevant.
Sorry, can I just query how again it doesn't comply with B18?
I don't believe that adding a takeaway outlet to the setting of the River Parrot enhances its setting.
In terms about defensible reasons for appeal, I'm happy for the reasons given in terms of D25 with noise disturbance, odour fumes. We as officers would consider we could cover those by condition, which is what we are requested to do by government. But if members are happy that the conditions wouldn't adequately assess those, so therefore it would be an impact, we can have that argument through appeal relatively easily. In terms of B18, if it's the principle of the use is supported by the policies in the local plan. So I would question whether we'd be able to defend B18 quite as well as D25. If it's the principle of the use, if it's something different, then give me something different.
No, I think policy D25 stands strongly enough in that case.
Okay.
And Councillor Evans?
Yeah, still happy to second Councillor Pearce's motion.
So that's just on the issue of B25. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Councillor Gibson, you've indicated, and then I'll come to Mrs. Lehman.
No, I just wanted to get chatty. I just agreed with the top two councillors. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Lehman.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I ask Dawn de Vries if she can just read out the refusal reason in 4 so that members are aware of the refusal reason before the vote is casted, please?
I would need to write it, but effectively it would be the use of the building as currently proposed would conflict with policy D25, resulting in an adverse impact in terms of noise and disturbance, odour and fumes in terms of amenities of the surrounding residents.
And could I just ask then, Mrs. de Vries, obviously the officer's recommendation was of the view that that could be dealt with by condition. So in effect, is the recommendation from members saying that it could not be overcome by condition?
That's what members would be saying if they agree with it.
Okay,
in terms
so
of the vote,
that would have to be part of the recommendation then, would it?
Well, effectively, the condition that was recommended, I'm just going back to the officer's report, bear with me. So there was a number of conditions as part of the application. So the first one being time limit approval of plans. So condition 3 required full details of the internal extraction, odour control, noise control and discharge to atmosphere from cooking operations, including any external ducting and flues, to be submitted and agreed in writing with us. And the equipment to thereafter be maintained in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions and operated at all times when cooking is being carried out, unless otherwise agreed in writing. Any extract or exhaust system in connection with the preparation of cooking of food shall discharge in such a place that odours and noise therefrom are not perceived beyond the application boundary. And I think the last one was also the waste management plan was also conditioned by condition 5. So officers were of the opinion that those issues were adequately covered by condition 3 and 5. It would be members saying that they were not satisfied that conditions 3 and 5 would address those impacts, and therefore there would still be an impact under policy D25.
Okay, so all I'm just wanting to clarify in terms of the recommendation that is going to go before members, or the resolution, does that need to explicitly make that point that members are not convinced that conditions could deal with it? Because if they could, we wouldn't be turning it down.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mrs. Lehman?
You don't need to put that the condition does not go far enough on the refusal reason. The refusal reason is the issues that Dawn de Vries read out, and that
Okay.
is correct. Thank you.
Okay, so are the just confirm, councillors Pearce and Revens, you're clear as to what the recommendation is that you're moving, which is basically this is not compliant with B25 because of the reasons outlined by yourselves and Mrs. de Vries?
Correct.
Yes,
Okay.
I am. Thank you.
Thank you. In which case, I will have to come around to members then for their votes on the new recommendation, which is to refuse on those grounds. We'll start again with Councillor Granter.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think we're getting a little bit bogged down with this one. I abstained on the first vote, and I shall abstain again on the second vote, I'm afraid. Sorry. Thank you.
Councillor Pearce?
I am for the recommendation to refuse.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson?
Yeah, I'm for the recommendation to refuse.
Thank you. Councillor Scott?
Yes, I'm for the recommendation to refuse.
Councillor Hendry.
I am against the recommendation to refuse, Mr. Chairman, and I would just like it said, I think this applicant has been treated most unfairly. They've gone to great lengths to amend everything to do this on the second time.
Councillor Hendry. Thank you. If we move on to Councillor Facey.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've again been present through the debate, Chairman, and I'm going to remain with my abstention, Chairman.
Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Been present and heard the whole debate, and my vote is in favour of the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kingham.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've heard the debate so far, and I am against.
Thank you. Councillor Bradford.
I've been present for the whole debate, Mr. Chairman. I am for.
Councillor Bolt.
I'm present for the whole debate. Against.
Councillor Perry.
Yes, thank you. I've been present through the whole debate and I am for.
Thank you. Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. Seen and heard the whole debate and I'm against.
Thank you. And I've also seen and heard the debate and I'm also against. So again, if we could ask Mrs. Nicholson for the voting, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So we've now got 6 in support, 5 against, 2 abstentions, 1 lost connection.
Thank you. So that recommendation to review is carried. So permission is refused. If I could ask Ms. Nicholson for my dissent to be recorded on that vote, please. Would be good. And if we can move on then, members, to our next application, which is page 15. And it's Broomfield. And if I could ask Amelia Elvey if you could present this one, please.
Yep, thank you, Chairman. I'll just get everything loaded.
If while we're just doing that, Mrs. Lehman, if I could ask you to put your hand down, please. I think it's still up. Thank you.
Okay, can you see the screen? Is it?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I will start then. Okay, so we have here the application for the proposed erection of a 2-storey extension to the side elevation and also erection of a porch to the property number 64 Rooks Castle Cottages in Broomfield. So the key policies that are relevant to this application are listed here. The main considerations of the proposal are the impacts on visual amenity, the AONB, residential amenity, highway safety, and bats. The application site is sited within the parish of Broomfield to the east of the main nucleus of Broomfield and to the west of North Petherton. The site lies just within the Quantock Hills AONB as depicted outlined in purple on this aerial view. To the south lies King's Cliff Wood. Number 64 Rooks Castle Road is a semi-detached property sited to the southwest of a C-class road at an elevated position. The road is set at a lower level to the house, with the site level increasing towards the southwest. The dwelling is surrounded by open countryside with an agricultural building to the southeast. The property is served by a parking area to the east as well. The application seeks consent for the erection of a 2-storey side extension and porch on the site of the existing porch. The application, repeat myself. So here are my photographs. So as you can see, this is the property as viewed from the road to the north. The property has a part hipped and part semi-hipped roof with gabled detailing to the front elevation. The dwelling is finished with rendered walls and red double Roman roof tiles. The pair of semi-detached properties are fairly isolated and are constructed on a sloping site, with the site level continuing to increase to the rear of the properties. Here are views of the side and the rear of the property. The extension will be built to this side where the porch currently is. This slide depicts the existing floor plans to the left and the proposed floor plans to the right. As it can be seen, the proposed extension will project 5 metres from the side elevation and will match the width of the existing property. The proposed extension will provide a master bedroom with ensuite at first floor and a boot room, toilet and porch at ground floor, along with an enlarged kitchen diner. This slide depicts the existing and proposed elevations. The proposed two-storey extension will be constructed by continuing the existing ridge and eaves height and is proposed to be finished with a demi-hip as per the original property. It is proposed to finish the extension in roof tiles and render to match the existing property. The first floor will be served by roof lights and a window to the side elevation. The open-sided porch will be finished with a hip roof and roof tiles to also match. For context, in 2013, permission was granted for the erection of a two-storey side and single-storey rear extension. This permission has now lapsed, however, the proposals are shown here for reference. The previously approved scheme being subservient to the main dwelling. This proposal was granted as it was considered to not be visually dominant, would not unbalance the pair of properties, or erode their character. The size and scale and design of the proposal that we are discussing would appear as an additional dwelling. The application site is in the countryside, and as a result, the visual impact of new dwellings is restricted by a number of other policies and would not therefore be generally supported in this manner without exception and justification, and would be subject to design considerations. With this in mind, the proposed extension is to an existing established dwelling, and consideration needs to be given as to how the design responds to and reinforces local context and character. The resultant scale of the proposed extension, designed as a continuation, would erode the existing character of the pair of semi-detached properties and is considered to be of an inappropriate scale relative to these. The use of matching materials is not considered enough of a mitigation, and the proposal fails to respond to and reinforce the existing scene and character of these properties. Furthermore, the site lies within the Quantock Hills AONB, and the impact of the proposal on the immediate and wider local area needs to be considered. New development proposals in the AONB should incorporate designs that are in keeping with the scale and form of traditional buildings. The area is characterised by many roadside cottages that cling to sloping sites, such as this application site. The majority of dwellings in the area are of a traditional construction and appearance. The proposed development is considered to result in an unbalancing of the pair of properties and results in a terracing effect that is detrimental to the character of the wider area. The bulk and form of the resultant dwelling is considered to erode the traditional form of the existing pair of properties. Therefore, it is considered the application does not comply with policies D2 and D19 of the local plan. The proposal was considered acceptable in terms of its impact on residential amenity, highway safety, and the back consultation zone. However, due to the conflicts of policies D2 and D19 of the local plan, the officer's recommendation is to refuse planning permission.
Thank you very much. As you'll see, we have a speaker on this application. Glenn Harmon, if you could turn on your microphone, please, and just confirm that it's working for us.
Good morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Again, just remind you, you've got the 3 minutes to address the committee, and you'll hear the bell go when there's 1 minute to go. Start when you're ready, please.
Very good. Good morning, all. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'd like to start out by letting you know that I have sat on your side of the table in the past. I was a voting member on my home city's Historic Preservation Committee, so I've done exactly what you are doing, reviewing the work of other architects that were presented in the historic areas. So very, very similar, and I understand exactly what you are thinking. So what I would like to say is that the proposed extension is a continuation of the existing form, which seeks to address the internal space shortcomings of the current layout in the most logical manner that is the least disruptive to the immediate context. By simply extending directly to the east and into the side garden with a form that matches the existing in every respect, not projecting either forward or rear of the existing facades, there will be no view at all of the proposed extension from the neighboring property. The existing semi is completely isolated, and the only public view of the property is from the highway, which is of course an oblique one, and you only see it for a brief instant because this national rule speed at this location. Now, in the absence of any formal policies governing the aesthetics of extensions to existing houses, the most logical way to create the additional internal space required is to match the existing form as closely as possible and conceptually stretch the dwelling, keeping the roof form, facade treatment, fenestration, and material palette identical to the existing. In this way, the addition will blend in seamlessly and not call attention to itself, unlike the previously consented options, which introduced different roof heights and awkward rear appendages. That would indeed create an unbalanced form, which would be a clear modification, and therefore would have been immediately noticeable as an addition, in addition to being visible from the only adjacent neighbor. When this extension as designed is complete, there will be no perceivable change to the building form in any practical vantage point. Now, from the purely abstract perspective and elevational composition, I can understand the source of the comments about balance, but this is not a listed building. It's not an unspoiled architectural gem. It's a very modest farm laborer cottage, and the design approach to extend it should respect that modesty without resorting to overly complicated contortions, which it simply cannot support. Notions of balance and erosion of character are simply not applicable because this is not an additional dwelling in the countryside, and those various policies do not apply, nor should this be thought of anything other than it is, an extension to an existing semi-detached dwelling. This proposal, I believe, meets the intent of policies D2 and D19 more successfully than the suggested approach of an altered roof height and rear protuberances for the reasons I've just outlined. And finally, we note that there have been no
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Mr. Harman, I'm going to have to step in. That's the 3 minutes, but thank you very much. Thank you. Members, any comments or questions, please? I've got Councillor Pearce, please, to start with.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, this is quite a difficult one. I know I've seen these cottages and they are in a very remote area. Just can you please remind me, has the neighbour made any comment? Because as it is so remote, the neighbour is the one who's going to be impacted most.
Yeah, we've not had any neighbour representations made.
Thank you.
Any further comments, Councillor Pearce, or is that's what you wanted?
No, that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I've then got Councillors Kingham, Bolt, and Gibson, and then Bradford. So, Councillor Kingham.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, this don't quite understand why we've got this committee. I mean, they say it's a pair of semi-detached cottages, right all on their own. Trying to look at it, the nearest property is quite some away, and like the agent said, I think this extension gives them the space in the room that they require for a family home. And I agree, it's probably a better application than the one that was approved and has lapsed. So I would give my support to this application. I think it's probably better, and as it's where it is, I don't see as it creates a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bolt.
Thank you. I think it's slide 8. Does that show the previous planning application, which is, that's it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's it was just a straightforward comparison. I can understand that that would look totally different compared to the one that's in now.
Thank you. I've then got Councillors Gibson, Bradford, Hendry, and Scott. So, Councillor Gibson.
Oh, sorry, I'm having trouble with the microphone. Thank you. Yeah, I think this, the drawings and the design on the second, the reapplication is so much better, and it would extend it slightly, and I think it would look good. I think it would look good, and it would give the people inside what they want. So I would support it on that ground alone, really.
Thank you, Councillor Bradford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know this site very well. Used to visit it quite often because the chap used to live in there, used to live at Rooks Castle Farm. Now, really, the second application is a great improvement from the first one, to be frank with you. And if there's any problems, believe you me, Broomfield Parish Council would have picked it up and rejected it, and they're in support of it. So really, there's not too much. I think it will enhance the whole area. There's a bit of a dull area got, and by putting something new on, there's going to put a bit of life into the place, because there is no dwellings, probably a mile each side of that particular place, and I think the whole the whole job will look an awful lot better. I think it will personally. So I'm going to move the recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bradford. Obviously, I'll come back to you in due course for reasons for going against the recommendation, and I presume it will be with conditions to be appropriately added. But I'll come to you in a minute to give you a time to consider that. Councillor Hendry and then Councillor Scott.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman. I think all the comments said before are absolutely correct. Everybody, Stuart, Kingham, Alan, Bradford, everything they've said, I can't see one thing wrong with this extension, nothing. Notwithstanding the fact that it's been before us already and on a bigger bulk than what it is now. I think it's absolutely great. Can't see one single problem for it, and I'm quite happy to second what's been said before from Councillor Alan Bradford. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott.
Yes, likewise, I think this is a much improvement on the original form, and I've got no problems with it, and I was going to second it, so I've been bitten to the post. Thank you.
Thank you. I think from my own point of view, I can understand where the officers have come from in the sense that it is a big extension on the side of a modest semi, but I do think what has been said is right in that it is a simple extension as opposed to the previous one, which introduced a lot more detailing, which to some extent, from my own point of view, clashed character-wise with what was there before. So I do understand where I think the officers are coming from, but I tend to agree with where members have gone on this so far. Councillor Evans.
Thank you very much. Yeah, like previous speakers, I don't particularly see a problem with this. I would also note that the AONB hasn't commented at all, which is quite surprising. This is visible from footpaths in the area, so it's not just visible from the road. In fact, I think that comment was slightly misleading, even though I support the aims of the speaker, and I think it would actually be better. There's a public footpath behind this property, and I think it would be a better view with this extension than the previous one that was proposed. So I am quite surprised that we're in this position. The AONB is supposed to be the people who can judge the landscape, and they've not put that comment in. So without that comment, I'm struggling to see the objection on those grounds. Thank you.
Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I agree with all the comments, especially the one by Councillor Evans. It just balances the whole thing up, and I think it's a far better extension to put on than the first one. So I don't see a problem with this. Thank you.
Okay, I'll come back then to Councillor Bradford. If you could just give us the planning reasons.
Straight away, don't you? But I won't. I'll enhance on that. Number one's common sense, and number two, without these extensions, these areas will die. Full stop.
Could I make a suggestion, Councillor Bradford? Common sense and planning decisions, probably not best to have in the same sentence. But what I would suggest is if you look at the reason for refusal, the officers have said it will cause an unacceptable impact on the character and visual amenity of the street scene. I'm taking from what you've said and what others have said that actually the view of the committee is that it wouldn't have that impact, and therefore it would be the negative of the reason for the refusal.
You're totally right. If two people were going to have a complaint against this application, it would be Broomfield Parish Council and the ANOB, believe you me. So really, this is acceptable, I think it is, and it's a vast area out there. You've got to see it to understand it, and this will have a slight impact, but nothing to worry about. It's the right thing to do.
Okay,
far better have these places in the countryside and stuck in the middle of villages messing them up. Yeah.
And also, Councillor Bradford, just to confirm that you would make the recommendation subject to suitable conditions to be agreed with Chairman and Vice Chairman.
Yeah, I certainly will. Yeah.
Okay.
And I hate disagreeing with the planning officer, but you've got to do what your mind tells you. Full stop. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Hendry is the second. Are you happy with that?
Yes, absolutely no problem at all. I'll go along with that. Yes.
Excellent. Councillor Kingham, you've indicated.
Yes, I would go along with that, Chairman. I was trying to help you with that recommendation, but you've done it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Application. Tina, is it DePledge? If I hope I've pronounced that right. Could you just enable your microphone and just confirm it's working for us?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Again, just to remind you, you've got the 3 minutes to address the committee, and you'll hear the bell go when there's 1 minute of that left to go. So please start whenever you're ready.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Tina Pledge, and I'm speaking on behalf of my husband, Sean, and our family. Thank you for the opportunity to address the committee. Firstly, I'd like to say that I was raised in North Peverton and have lived here all my life, so did my parents and grandparents too. Our 3 daughters attended the local nursery and school. Sean was raised in Bridgewater. As set out in the officer's report, we have been granted planning permissions for a new dwelling, garage and associated landscape work. No changes are proposed to the house. However, in the light of the recent challenges brought about by COVID and having active but nevertheless aging parents who have unfortunately both been widowed, one of which only been in August of this year, therefore this has made us as a family reevaluate what might be best for the future, and we feel that the space above the garage presents an ideal opportunity to have family members closer. COVID has highlighted the difficulties of families being separated, and that planning for the future with an aging family is both sensible and prudent. We feel very lucky that we have the opportunity to do so. This issue of family is a simple explanation for the changes proposed to the garage. However, the Town Council object on design grounds and that the annex would be difficult to access for people with disabilities. Members will see from the plans shown that a high standard of design is proposed, and the development would meet the highest standards of sustainability, with installation levels exceeding building regulation requirements, minimising energy costs and reducing environmental impact. I would also like to add that since commencement on the build, we have now decided to have an air source heat system installed rather than using gas. This, alongside the solar panels and underfloor heating, will make the development even more sustainable. And if we are successful in our application, the annex will be run from the main house using this source and have underfloor heating also. The Town Council's concern is that the first floor living accommodation could be challenging in some circumstances for those with a physical disability. However, this is not the case. Future family occupiers are neither disabled or frail, and the form of accommodation meets their needs and is in no way unusual, unsafe or inappropriate. On the contrary, it will be to the highest spec. Being slightly separated from the main house will allow a greater degree of independence than might otherwise be the case. Everyone will appreciate the benefits that would arise from having family support so close and on hand if needed, and the reassurance this provides in peace of mind for both parties. If members accept the design as appropriate and is a sustainable form of development, then the Town Council's remaining concern is that the first floor accommodation is difficult to access for disabled people. As I've said, our family are fortunately neither physically disabled or frail and are excited by the prospect of living independently but close by for support. In these circumstances, no harm arises. We would just like you to consider the positive benefits that this would be for our local family, which also has the support of your local planning officer, and despite the reservations of the Town Council, whom we fully respect, we hope to have your support too. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much.
dwellings along Petherton Road are considered to be of a sufficient distance away. Each of the plots has been designed so as not to cause any direct overlooking through the sensitive siting of windows. Plot 6 will not have any windows for main living areas overlooking the rear of Lovens Farm. Plot 1 itself will have no windows in its side elevation facing onto the rear property of Farthings. And all windows are projected to overlook mutually accessible points within the site, including parking spaces and the shared turning and access. The application site itself will also include a bin collection storage area, which will allow refuge vehicles to enter the site and collect bins from the without having to enter and leave the site in a forward gear, which although given the size of the turning area, this would be possible. However, it's considered that the shared bin storage area would be most convenient and also set back from the highway so as not to cause a visual impact on Petherton Road itself. The application is recommended for approval, subject to a number of conditions as set out at the bottom of the report. These cover issues such as archaeology, which has been recommended by the South West Heritage Trust. We've also included conditions which relate to the construction of the development and restriction on times of when that can take place, taking into account the proximity of existing residential properties and gardens to the plots themselves. We've also, in terms of addressing drainage, the Highway Authority have recommended a condition which requires drainage details to be submitted to prevent any localised flooding within Petherton Road, which has been cited as an issue by residents. However, given that the nature of this, the amount of green space that can be provided for each of the plots is considered that surface water drainage should not be a significant impact, and that subsequent details should be able to confirm that the impact on the highway will be minimal through the acceptance of a suitably designed scheme. Overall, the application itself is considered to be of a suitable scale, will provide 2 affordable housing units, and will be of a suitable design and scale so as not to have an impact on the amenity of nearby residents. The application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We have a number of speakers on this application, so if we start with Samuel Wadhams-Sharp, please. If you could enable your microphone and just confirm that it's working for us, please.
Yes, I'm here and I'm speaking on behalf of several local residents with their support.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So if you start, you'll have 3 minutes to address the committee, and you'll hear the bell go when there's 1 minute to go. So please make a start.
Ignoring detail, blatantly disregarding our community, and flaunting due process, the planning officer's report is alarming and dangerously negligent. The planning department has failed our community miserably, failed to inform, failed to listen, failed to be honest. 800% more villagers objected to this application because they actually knew about it. 0 have supported. Hardly a proud moment for any public service department. This proposal flaunts policy T4 and D2. Petherton Road has wholly single residences with gardens and open land behind. No existing courtyard-style development. The planning report fails to justify how this development meets their needs. This is not a farmyard development. It's someone's garden. Greenland, not brownfield land. Conflicting with local character. Impacting the street scene. Setting a dangerous precedent. A row of garden ghettos. Policy D5 and D25 are contravened, blatantly contradicting itself. Here the report states only a 1 metre increase in site topography. Elsewhere, it states buildings will be 2.46 metres taller than the height of the current property. Which one is it? It ignores impact on privacy, natural light, and misleads on the distance from my property. It is less than 10 metres from my curtilage, not the 21. These constant inaccuracies prompted commission of our own expert survey, again ignored by the planning officer. Their findings. The low density nature of the environment is devastated by this development. The development will degrade security, overshadowing others' privacy as only a stone's throw away. The work itself will substantially disrupt the environment. The planning report shockingly disregards policy D14 and its impact on highways. The need to park cars on Petherton Road, it claims, will not cause an impact due to the typically low speeds of traffic through the village. Yet, we villagers frequently cite the high speeds, high traffic volumes and absence of pavements as significant safety issues. Where does this planning officer get his data? Please will the committee view this application alongside those for Burnt House Farm and Tuckerton Lane, far more suitable sites such as brownfield reuse, which will meet the required increase in housing stock and affordable housing. 3 credible sources know this area far better than the planning officer and the developer. I urge the committee to heed the town council and town mayor's wholehearted opposition. I urge you to listen to your community, and I urge you to reject this proposal.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is James Barham, and I believe you're speaking on behalf of North Petherton Town Council today. If you could enable your mic.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, thank you. So again, start when you're ready and you'll hear the bell go when there's 1 minute to go.
Okay, thank you. I wish to put forward some of the views and concerns of both local councillors and residents regarding the proposed planning for Lovens Farm. The change of access in the altered layout to accommodate one extra dwelling poses several issues. The number of parking spaces on site for the number of dwellings is insufficient as stated in the planning officer's report, and it also states that on-road parking on North Petherton Road will be acceptable for the purposes of extra parking and for visitors. This is not acceptable for the following reasons. Most importantly, it will mean pedestrians will have no option but to walk further out into the road to bypass the parked vehicles. It is already a safety issue for families walking to and from the school, as there are no pavements along Petherton Road. This will undoubtedly be a regular occurrence, as in my experience, people do not park cars in garages, so there will be additional vehicles with nowhere to park on their property. It very clearly states the courtyard is only to be used for turning, not for parking. The photograph in the presentation showing a parked car to indicate space for on-road parking is actually situated where the new entrance and visibility display is to be, so not a true depiction. The only places to park in the vicinity will be outside adjacent properties, thus reducing the access and visibility for those residents to enter and leave their properties. Petherton Road is already a busy road that not only has a large quantity of residents' traffic, but also a variety of agricultural vehicles and wide implements. As it is the only access road for large heavy goods vehicles, any restriction on the width would be detrimental to the flow of traffic. Another concern is how the surface water runoff will be controlled on site, as it is a naturally sloping towards the road, a 1 in 12 slope as detailed in the design and access statement. Having an extra dwelling increases the amount of surface water runoff and reduces any space for adequate soakaways. Only a couple of months ago, the road along that particular stretch was under a foot of water from runoff from fields and properties. To summarise, introducing the change of access road and new layout to accommodate an extra dwelling will only increase the number of vehicles and parked cars which the site does not have the space for, as clearly stated in the planning officer's report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Ward Councillor, Councillor Bradford. If you could enable your microphone, Councillor Bradford, just to remind you, you've got 3 minutes. 1 minute will be given as a warning when the bell goes. So start when you're ready, please, Councillor Bradford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, fellow councillors, our job as councillors to represent local people, and this is what I'm doing today. This site was put forward for affordable housing along with Tuckerton Lane. Tuckerton Lane had to jump through all the hoops to get planning consent, and not Lovens Farm. Why was it? No village consultation, very few residents notified, very much included Eden House was in the process of changing hands at the time. Not the right process. If the village was consulted, this would have been slung out. Nobody wants it. I think this application actually came in during an afternoon before a planning committee meeting at North Petherton Town Councillors, and a lot of the councillors never had the opportunity to look at the site. The site itself is detrimental to the village. The whole street scene could be affected, yet 50 yards along from this application, there's long reach granted, a major planning application there, a whole new change to the whole street scene. Doesn't look right at all. The topography of this site, along with the parking, not acceptable. The houses are dominant. There is a flood problem every time it rains, all the way from the runoff from the back fields. In fact, the fields at the back are actually landlocked. The access to this particular from this field would have been where Heaton House is to now, but that was sold off when Heaton House was built. So by putting a new access in, you're actually opening up the back of this development, maybe not at all. The whole field seemed to be against what we're doing. The whole village is against it. I've never known the village so strong against a planning application as this one, and we must try and get these things right. One thing I will say, when the initial planning application came out, I was out the country for 3 weeks, and things all happened in that period of time, I'm afraid to say, and that's how it was. That's why I've had to get involved at this late stage. Something that never should happen. There's nothing good about it. You all know I'm all for affordable housing, but if you want affordable housing in North Newton, there's far better places than this with a much more green space and much more better outlook. Maybe we will turn the clock back and hopefully get the procedure right. Councillors, all put yourself forward in the position of these adjacent properties on all 3 sides when you come out of there. Not good at all. In fact, in normal times, no doubt we'd have had a site meeting. Because one of my good old saying is, the eye never lies. And I'm sure if you've seen it, you'd all share the same concerns as us local people. So whatever you decide today will be there for a long time. So please think about it hard. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Right, members, the next speaker we have is Tom Gatsby. Mr. Gatsby, if you could turn your microphone on and just confirm that it's working.
Yep, hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, we can, thank you. So again, just to remind you, you've got 3 minutes. You'll hear the bell go, 1 minute to go. So please start when you're ready.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I'm sure you're aware, the principle of development has already been established on this site with the grant of outline permission for 5 houses. In our view, the current application is an improvement on the previously approved scheme in a number of ways. The access to this site has been improved from the permitted outline application, with the Highways Department having no objection to the proposal. The courtyard design allows for the turning of delivery vehicles to minimise traffic on Peverton Road, with other improvements including a bin collection area, together with increased car passing space. The Highways Department also have no objection to the ample level of parking, which is in line with council guidelines, and have confirmed that sufficient visibility displays at the point of access will be provided. The application makes better use of the site than that previously approved, while not compromising on amenity space, creating a development which is more beneficial for neighbours. The topography of the site has been adjusted and the site has been stacked, with 1.5-storey dwellings proposed on the higher sections of the site. You can see from the section drawings and the street scene that the ridge and eaves height of the proposed dwellings are only slightly higher than the neighbouring properties. We have taken neighbours' views into consideration, moving the houses further from the northern boundary, with plots 5 and 6 having no first floor unobscured windows facing to the north or to the east. To the southern boundary, plot 1 has been moved further forward to not enclose the neighbouring garden, while providing landscaping so the property is not overlooked. 2 affordable houses are proposed to be provided, representing 33.3% of the total dwellings. The Housing Development Manager has stated their support for our application. Affordable houses provide a real benefit to the area. As a developer, we're looking to begin work on site as soon as possible and contribute towards the housing requirement in Sedgemoor. The number of deliverable sites has been greatly reduced recently, and the addition of 1 extra dwelling makes this site viable and deliverable in the short term. For these reasons, I hope that the councillors will vote in line with the officer recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a couple of councillors who've indicated already, so if we start with Councillor and then Councillor Hendry. Councillor Gibson.
Yeah, thank you. There seems to be a lot of houses on this small spot to me, this space. I just wanted to know, I know there's 2, so say affordable houses going on this, but is there any gardens here? I mean, I know I can see some green colour 6 trees maybe. I wondered if there were any gardens for the properties and the affordable ones, because that, you know, everyone would probably wants a garden. And I want to know if the any of the buildings create their own energy and their own heating, please, because that is important. If we pass anything that's being built, new builds, I think it's important that they create their own energy.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. The gardens for each of the plots are indicated by the green spaces, as Councillor Gibson has pointed out. So these are located here for the affordable housing units, here and here. Plot 4 has the garden space to the side here. Plot 5 to the north, and plot 6 also to the north as well. Plot 1 has its garden space enclosed at the front of the site, with its entrance located on the off of the parking spaces there. In terms of energy efficiency, we have no specific details about solar panels or anything like that, but obviously with a number of the properties south facing, this could be a possibility in the future. I believe the application is looking to provide each of the 6 dwellings with electric charging points to allow each of those to adapt to those requirements in the future as well. So that's what we have in terms of sustainable energy initiatives on those. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We have Councillor Hendry and then Councillor Evans. Councillor Hendry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to say first thank you to the case officer for a very thorough presentation. Before I say anything at all, I'd like to ask the case officer just one quick question. Is this considered rural or urban? Which is it?
The application site straddles both. While North Newton is a tiered settlement, the part of the site is outside the development boundary, so it's partly countryside, partly within.
Oh, okay, because I couldn't establish which it was then. So if it's like, shall we say, for the want of a better 50-50, how does that affect SIL? Because one is actually 50% of the other. So where does that come in?
With regards to SIL, urban development in that respect is limited to the urban development either within Bridgewater or Highbridge and Burnham.
Right.
Anything outside of those areas is considered to be non-urban, so would be subject to the SIL payments under the non-urban tariff.
Right, so that brings it down to 50% from the urban then. Is that what we're saying? No, sorry, urban's the low one and the rural's the high one. So are they paying the low SIL at urban then?
No, sorry. In terms of the SIL, it would be subject to the non-urban payments. So all of the dwellings, regardless of whether they're in the development boundary or not, would be subject to the non-urban SIL payments. Like I said, only Bridgewater and North Pelleton and Highbridge development within those development boundaries would be subject to the urban payment, which, like you said, is a lower sum than those submitted outside of those areas. So, yeah, as North Newton is not an urban area under SIL, it would be subject to the non-urban payments under SIL.
So in effect, we're paying about 105, 110 pounds per square metre or something like that. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, all right, moving on from that. Okay, this could in its own right be classed as an infill settlement in its own way, because that's just exactly what it is. However, moving on, the statutory consultees, highways, ecology, drainage, everybody seems to be on board. If they come back with any complaints or any misgivings, they say, well, okay, but they don't. They're actually all on board with this. The street scene is not as affected as some people are trying to make out to be, because it's set back so far back from the road. The adjoining houses, well, the way this sits in there is not that much different to any other kind of project like this. It's just, that's the way it is, and you have to move on with that. The parking, according to this that's on the screen at the moment, I think this is number 4 here, the parking is actually within its own standard guidelines, and anybody can see that just by looking at the drawing. The 2 affordable housing, that's just the kind of icing on the cake, if you want to take a better word for that. So all in all, there is no major problem with this, and I myself, no, I don't see a problem. I think it's actually okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I take a slightly different view on this and thank the passionate speakers from the community who've contributed to this debate. If we look at policy T4, which is the principle of this, it's very clear that it's a judgment as to whether something is acceptable or not acceptable. And I think the density of the housing that is now being proposed for here tips it over the balance from being acceptable infill to unacceptable infill. So if we look at the bullet points on policy T4, it talks about unacceptable harm, it talks about appropriate to scale and design, it talks about unacceptable harm to the character of nearby property. And I think it has tipped over that balance from being acceptable to unacceptable. On the parking, it doesn't have sufficient parking by county standards. It's 0.7 of a space under, and that's mostly in terms of visitor parking. And the visitors will park on Petherton Road, and they will park as human nature would dictate, as close to the lay by the visibility display as they possibly can. Pulling out of that entrance, that road isn't the quiet rural idyll that that Highway seem to be making it out that it is. In fact, it is where I have proposed as the county council a small improvement scheme to look at reducing the impact of speed along there, particularly the safe routes to school for children, because there's no pavement along there. And unfortunately, some people seem to treat it as a racetrack in the morning, trying to get their kids to school while other people are walking to school. It's not an acceptable place to make the highway situation worse. I take on board all the points about the impact of residential amenity. I'm concerned in terms of policy D1 about water runoff. In terms of the affordable housing need, I'm fully in support of affordable housing for North Newton. There is an ongoing survey at the moment for affordable housing. I don't believe that has reached its conclusions yet, and we're aware that there are other affordable housing sites that have permission within North Newton. So we need to understand if this does, under policy T4, meet affordable housing need. We need to actually see the final report and conclusions of that before we can assess whether it's compliant with that part of policy T4. So I would propose that we object to this application and that it be refused on those grounds. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I've got Mrs. De Vries.
Thank you. Just coming back on a couple of points that have been raised by members in terms of surface water drainage, there is a condition proposed on the application that does cover that. That's condition 10. An earlier point by Councillor Gibson in terms of landscaping. Landscaping is indicated on the plan, but again, we do have a condition to cover that, so we can control landscaping and more additional planting through condition 15. In terms of the housing needs assessment, there is a current housing needs assessment for this area. There is a new one being done. The anticipation is that the numbers will go up from what's currently set, but what's currently set is that there's a need for 8 units for this area. There are 6 that have resolution to grant on a different site, so that leaves 2. And the 2 2-bed units on this site would accommodate the existing identified housing need, and that's been supported by the housing affordable housing manager. So whilst there is a new survey that is being done, the anticipation is always that the numbers go up after the survey's been done, but there is an identified need for 2 units outstanding, which would be met by this development. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Hendry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Only just a couple of points the way I see this. I think it's called Petherton Road that runs past the entrance of the site. If that's referred to as a boy racer and racetrack thing, that's not an excuse to stop a development. That's something for the authorities, i.e. the police or whatever it is, to control that. It's not a reason. Can I have slide 4 back up, please? That's just nothing to do with that. You can't stop a development because of that. Secondly, moving on, in villages like this, you always have people, regardless of who it is, who don't want it just because it's a village. I take the case in point, if you go to Wedmore, they've built houses there and the same sort of thing because it's a small location and you get a lot of objections. You cannot stop something like this going on just because people live in a village and just because they don't want change and because they don't like it. This has got everything going for it. The consultees, as I said before previously, everybody's on board. The road outside it, if some people refer to it as a racetrack, well, so be. That's not a reason to shoot this down in flames. You can't have it. And at this moment in time, I would move the recommendation for this to be accepted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, do you want to comment at all? I'll take it that's a no for the moment. I'll come in. I just wanted to ask a question actually of Mr. Evans, if I could. If you could show us the front street scene potentially. One of the questions I wanted to ask was in terms of access. The photographs that we saw showed a substantial stone wall that is currently along the entire frontage of Lovinge Farm, which is obviously going to be broken through. The conditions seem to be saying there should be nothing above 60 centimeters in the visibility splay. In terms of that, could you give me some idea as just how much of that front wall goes in terms of street scene? Because obviously that looks more substantial than that sort of height. So I'd like to get an idea of that to start with.
Yes, thanks, Chairman.
Thanks.
Obviously, yes. Sorry about that. I was trying to I was about to comment, but unfortunately the screen kept coming off allow me to. The wall itself will have to be lowered in order to accommodate the visibility splay that will be provided to enable the safe access to Petherton Road. However, there will be the retention of there will be a retention of stone within the retaining wall, which will go into the site to create the lay-by and the passing place, which will be set within the site. So there will be a retention. I mean, there was concern expressed to the applicants about the loss of stonework to the site and how that would affect the street scene. So yes, the stone boundary wall will be retained, albeit in a lower form than is currently at the moment, just to enable that visibility splay to be provided. But you can see adjacent to the site, there's obviously a lower stone boundary wall, which would be more in keeping with what the visibility splay requirements would be.
And again, Mr. Evans, in terms of looking to the right of the picture that we're looking at there in front of Lovinge Farm, the picture I think you had up earlier showed large gate posts in front of that property. So would those again be removed?
So if I just get this photograph up of the entranceway. So in terms of the pedestrian access into that, the visibility splay itself will be parallel with the highway. Based upon the highway survey that was done in support of this application, this was allowed to taking into account. Sorry, so I'm getting my words mixed up here. So so there will be a reduction in the height of the stone boundary treatment along the highway here, which will, as you can see, include the pedestrian pillars there as well. So this will obviously, this is the visibility display indicated by the yellow area here, and this will include the stone boundary wall here, which is set out on the plan as stating that it will be no greater than 600 mm within the display itself.
Thank you. I must admit, from my own point of view, trying to get my head around this plan as it stands at the moment, we've got obviously comments that have been raised about highways, about street scene. We've got the issues of potential land levels within the site. And I just wonder whether, much though obviously under the current regime it's difficult to have site visits, I just wonder whether this is actually a site that does call for a site visit, because there are so many relationships between that site and its neighbours and land levels and the other issues that we've had. So I'm going to make a proposition of a site visit and see where we go from there. I've got Councillor Scott next on my list. Councillor Scott.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just some clarification, really. I take on board everything that's been said about this application. As I understand it, the permission that's currently there is for 5 affordable houses. And I understand that half of this site is actually outside the village boundary. So I guess that came under a different policy when we were allowing
affordable houses to be built outside the village boundary. So what policy do we have now which supports an application that's coming forward for 6 properties, of which 2 are affordable, on land which is outside, or part of it is outside the village boundary? So that's the question first.
Okay, if we start with Mr. Evans, if you can just clarify the position of the previous permission and the policies relating to the current application.
Yes, the application that was previously approved was in outline form with all matters reserved for subsequent approval. So in effect, it was just the principle of the development. While we had an indicative layout, it didn't actually confirm what the layout of that site would be or the scale of the houses that we were looking at, unlike the plan we have in front of us today. That wasn't for 5 affordable houses. It was for 5 houses, including 2, which was secured by Section 106 agreement to be affordable housing. So very similar to what we have in front of us today. We just have an additional dwelling proposed as part of this scheme.
Thank you. Councillor Scott?
Yeah, thanks for that. I do think it's a difficult site, and I agree with Councillor Revens that T4, maybe it is a judgment call on this, and I would support your notion to actually have a site visit, because I think we really need to see the topography and the layout of the site before I can make a decision anyway. Thank you. So I would support your.
Just to confirm, Councillor Scott, are you seconding that then?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from members? I'm not seeing anything at the moment, in which case we've had 3 proposals, 1 for refusal, 1 for granting, and 1 for a site visit. The only one of those that has actually been seconded as yet is the site visit. So that's the proposal that we will have to take first if there are no further comments or questions, which I'm not seeing any other comments. So in which case we'll take the vote on the site visit. We'll start this time with Councillor Revens.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I've seen and heard the whole debate, and my vote is in favour of a site visit. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kingham.
I must say, I'm not sure. I think I may have missed the first minute or so of the presentation, so I'm not really sure whether I can.
Okay, in which case we'll record you as absent for part of the debate. Councillor Bolt.
I've been here for the whole debate, and I'm for a site visit.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Yes, thank you. I've been here through the whole debate, and I'm for a site visit.
Councillor Grimes.
Yes, Chairman, been here for the whole debate, and I'm for. Thank you.
Councillor Granter.
Yes, Chairman, been here for the whole debate, heard and seen everything, and I'm for the site visit. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Glassford.
Yes, Chairman, I have heard the whole debate. I am for a site visit.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Yes, seen and heard the whole debate, and I am for a site visit.
Councillor Gibson.
Yeah, I've not gone anywhere, and yeah, we'll go there for the site visit. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Yes, I've seen and heard the whole debate, and I'm for the site visit.
Thank you. Councillor Hendry.
Okay, I've seen and heard everything, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'll go with that. And on the same token, I have to withdraw when I said that I'll put it forward for recommendation because of the site visit. Thank you.
That's fine. Councillor Facey.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Been present throughout, Chairman. I'll support the site visit.
Thank you. I've also been present throughout and am for the site visit. Is that all members, Mrs. Nicholson, that have voted?
Yes, Chairman. So that's 10 in support of the site visit and 1 that's lost connection.
Could you just check that number for me?
Okay. Should we try 12?
Thank you. Okay, so that's 12 for the site visit. 1 was absent. That makes it 13 because 1 is already out of the room. That's fine. So that is clearly carried. So that is a site visit for this application, which was on the grounds of, as was mentioned, it was looking at the topography, the relationship with the street scene and the neighbours. So that's what we'll have a look at on site. Thank you, members.
Mr. Chairman, can we add in the highways point and the
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep, certainly. Okay. Right, members, that takes us to our next application. We need to get Councillor Bradford, I think, back into the room. And Councillor Gibson, did you indicate?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to include the, for me, it's overbuilt, the area, and I guess that goes in with the street scene. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, we'll certainly.
Yeah, okay.
That's fine. We'll certainly take that into account on site. Mrs. Nicholson, are you able to contact Councillor Bradford?
Mr. Taylor's dealing with that one.
Great. Thank you.
So hopefully, if you just want to just take
we'll give him a couple of minutes.
Oh, no, he seems to be back in the room.
Okay. So the next application is the one back on page 8, which is back into Bridgewater. Councillor Bradford, could you just come back in the room, please?
I can confirm I'm back in the room, Mr. Chairman. I hear you loud and clear.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Parsons, would you like to introduce the application for Bridgewater?
Here, and here we're looking south towards the buildings outside of the site, and this is the floor plan of the existing premises. Now, there has been some history on this site which has resulted in a recent consent for the conversion of this building to be converted into 8 flats. That comprises of 7 2-bed flats and a 1-bed sit. This application seeks to convert the building into a 17-bed house of multiple occupation, which is shown here on the drawings. In terms of the history on the site, previously an application was granted for conversion of this building to flats back in 2014. That expired, and that then was resubmitted with an almost identical scheme earlier this year, and that was granted in November. So this building has an extant consent to be converted to 8 flats. To the south of the site, which is outside of this application site, but in the blue land, there was an application to erect a block of 17 flats. That expired, and I currently have outstanding application for a similar proposal for the erection of 13 flats on that, and that's still to be determined. So back to this one, this proposal is an alternative scheme to what's been approved, and this is a proposal for a 17-bed HMO. A ground floor level, it's shown to provide 5 ensuite bedrooms, 2 with cooking facilities, 2 bedrooms which share a bathroom. There would be a shared kitchen, lounge, dining room, laundry room and store for those that don't have self-contained units. At first floor level, there would be an ensuite bedroom, 4 ensuite bedrooms with cooking facilities and 4 bedrooms which would share 2 bathrooms, a WC and a laundry room. And at the upper floor, there would be 2 ensuite bedrooms with cooking facilities. Outside, there's the proposal to include the existing hard surfaced area to accommodate 8 parking spaces along the side here, to provide a bin store here, and also, which is at the front of the premises, but you can't see it from the road because it's behind a brick wall and appears to be an extension of the existing building that will be used for cyclone storage. There is an objection from the Town Council that's brought this application to committee, and they refer to, or they question whether the proposal meets the licensing requirements for an HMO. The licensing officer has confirmed that the proposed floor spaces are very generous and they do meet that requirement. And the Town Council also are concerned about the number of parking spaces. And the proposal here is to provide 8 parking spaces, which was identical in terms of the extant consent that's just been approved to convert it into 8 flats. Now, going back to the principle of the development, the site is within the built-up predominantly residential area. It's got an extant consent to be converted into flats. The size of the units complies with the licensing requirements, and the principle of residential is deemed to be acceptable. In terms of the impact on the conservation area, the building is not listed. It's not proposed to make any physical alterations to the building other than the removal of some single-storey additions at the rear. And therefore it's not considered that the proposal would have any adverse impact on the area or the conservation area. In terms of highway safety, the existing vehicular access would be utilised. The areas down the side of the site, to the west of the site, would provide 8 parking spaces. It's that number of parking spaces is considered to be acceptable, taking into consideration the previous use of the property as a daycare centre and taking into consideration what's previously been approved and what could be built out on the site. The site is relatively close to existing services and facilities, and therefore it's not considered that it would have any adverse impact on highway safety. The recommendation is therefore to grant consent. There are a couple of amendments to the conditions that I hadn't managed to get updated on the agenda before it went to print. Condition number 3 is a pre-commencement condition, and therefore the reason needs to include reference to the fact that it is a pre-commencement condition and that it's required to protect the amenity of the existing and proposed residents. Condition 4 refers to landscaping, and it's recommended to simplify the condition and make it more relevant, to refer to existing landscaping that is to be retained. And I propose that if this application is approved, that the wording is agreed with the chair and vice chairman in respect of that. Otherwise, the recommendation is to grant consent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions from members, please?
Yes, Chairman.
Yeah, Councillor Kingham, do you want to start off? And that'll be good.
Yeah, I couldn't find my chat box in. Yes, I think this is probably an ideal use of a redundant building, which is a fine type of architectural design. Houses of multiple occupation these days are for all types of people. You see them, I watch the program on the television, and they're very business people use them, and I think this is an ideal use of it, and I would fully support the application on this case. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson, then Councillor Pearce. Councillor Gibson.
Yeah, thank you. I'm against this actually, the amount of people in rooms in this, but this is a lovely building, an old building, and I'd be all for the 7 times 2 bedrooms, rooms, and then the 1 bed sit. I would be for that completely, because I think that that's what a lot of people want, is a 2-bedroom place. In a lot of respects, and there's no changes to the building, the physical structure of the building. So, does every room have a window, or is it all extractor fans in these rooms? I can't see the drawings very well, I'm afraid, on my computer.
Okay, Ms. Parsons, can you answer the question in terms of natural light and ventilation?
The actual standard in terms of the space provided in this scheme is well above what is necessary to meet the standards of the licensing for the HMO, and so this proposal overall does provide much larger rooms and circulation space, etc. But in order to answer the question, no, not every single bedroom has, because bedroom 7 I can see there, it's oh, actually it does, because this area here is the outdoor storage area, which is bounded from the road with this with this wall here. So there is a room there, sorry, a window to that room. Just, I would have to go through each one basically and have a look at each bedroom. It certainly does look as though each one has a window, yes.
Thank you. I've then got Councillor Pearce and Councillor Bradford. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, this is a fine old building. I don't think the photographs really did it justice, and like Councillor Gibson, I wish it was the previous scheme we were looking at. I was concerned over the sizes of the rooms, but that's been clarified that they do meet requirements, and also that each room has lights. I do have concerns over the traffic generation, because that road in particular is a difficult. There is no excess parking on there, but having said that, I realise that probably not everybody will have a car here. So yeah, I'll wait to hear the rest of the debate. But I just wanted to make those points, and as ward member, make a contribution.
Thank you. Councillor Bradford.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I haven't got a problem with this, you know, and it may be something in the future with all these shops closing and whatever. You may well see a lot more of these things up here. I wouldn't mind betting. But I would like to know how many actual councillors have visited one of these places. I had the, I had the go into one of these places a couple of months ago, actually, for a reason, and I wasn't too impressed, if I'm honest. I'm not going to tell you where it was to, but I certainly wasn't very, very impressed. And vulnerable people go into these places, right? And they meet some more vulnerable people than what they are. And by God, I don't know how to take them down the hill. That's the situation we find ourselves in with the shortage of housing. I'm trying to put things into perspective here, because I've experienced something. And when you've experienced it, you can talk about it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from members? Yeah, I've got Councillor Scott, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'd be a bit concerned about this one. Whilst I can appreciate it's a lovely old building, 17 separate areas is quite a lot, especially as they've not all got bathroom and cooking facilities. And there doesn't appear, I can't really see the drawing because it's quite small, whether there's a communal area that they can share sort of things like cooking facilities. Just wondered if the officer could confirm.
Yeah. Again, Ms. Parsons, if you could just outline the information.
Yes, sorry that the drawing isn't clear enough. Yes, basically there are, I mean, if I run through what's proposed here, there is a double room only. No, sorry, there's two double rooms only, and 5 single rooms only, if you like. What I mean by that is where they've got a bedroom and no ensuite cooking facilities. So there's 2 with a double room, 5 with a single room, and then there are the others are self-contained. So all the others have cooking and washing facilities as one unit. And then there is shared facility. For example, there's a shared kitchen, living, dining room, which is 38 square meters here on the ground floor. And there will also be shared laundry and some shared bathrooms for the ones that don't have their own facilities.
Thank you. And just to confirm, I think you said earlier that in terms of the licensing for this, it meets all the criteria in terms of facilities availability?
Yes, it does. I've had that confirmed. And I mean, just for an example, in terms of sizes, the HMO standard for a license for a double room needs to be 10.22 square meters in area. And the smallest one proposed here is 14.8 square meters. And the HMO's standards for a single room needs to be 6.51 square meters. And what we have in the scheme here, the smallest is 9.1 square meters. And then where the units are self-contained, it's Sedgemoor provide their ideal requirements for the licensing here, and their standard is 19 square meters and the smallest is 20.7 square meters, with quite a number of them much larger at 26, 24, 35, 38. And so in terms of space, it's quite generous.
Thank you. I think Councillor Evans has withdrawn his question, so we'll come to Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Chairman. I think my questions have been answered really on space and light, which was an issue. I think, like has been said, my preference, excuse me, would have been flats, but that's beside the point. And listening to all the remarked conversations on this, I will move this recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. Just one final question. I mean, this is a big development, and I guess the success or not depends on how it's managed. And I appreciate that's outside of the development control as well. But are you able to give any information in terms of licensing arrangements, how often the premises will be inspected, etc., just to make sure that waste disposal and conditions are okay there?
Ms. Parsons, do you have details of the licensing?
No, I'm afraid I don't. I don't have enough knowledge in terms of the licensing on that. Sorry.
Mrs. De Vries, would you have that by any chance?
No, I think the only thing we can control through the planning is the location of the bin collection point, which was pointed out by Shanta earlier on in the presentation.
I think
But
that may be
in
something.
terms of how they manage it, that would fall down to the provider.
Yeah, I think that may be something, Councillor Pearce, that you'll need to take up with the licensing section to highlight with them. Councillor Hendry and then Councillor Kingham.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I've seen and heard the whole debate. I'm happy with everything. I'm quite happy to second Councillor Tony Grimes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kingham.
Yeah, Councillor Hendry has actually beat me to it, but I think you have to remember these places are for all people, not just people that require a home. But generally, I think it's a good scheme. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Glassford.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I was going to second it. It's nice to see an HMO with so much space, considering some of the ones we've passed a few months ago in that. So I welcome this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any. Yes, I am. Councillor Gibson.
Yeah, I think those walls between, I mean, you've got to think 17 people there and they're double, so there'll be a lot more people in here. The trouble with when you're converting in and have so many, you get such sound pollution through these, and the walls look so thin in between the areas, and it's minimum light that these places are getting, because they're with the size of the windows, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm just not too sure about this at all.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further comments or questions, we have a recommendation to grant which has been moved and seconded. So again, I'll come round to members for their votes, and we'll start this time again with Councillor Granter.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I can confirm that I've heard and seen all of the debate. I'm not still too happy with the HMOs and plonking all these people in a couple rooms. The 8 flats would have been a lot better, but I'm against this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Lehman, did I see you indicate that you needed to come in?
Sorry, Chairman, I couldn't access my chat. Can we just make sure that the recommendation is with the 2 amends to the conditions, please?
Absolutely. Just
Thank you.
thank you. Just to confirm then that with Councillors Grimes and Hendry, that's with the amended conditions.
Yes, sorry, I should have said that. Sorry,
Yeah,
Chairman.
that's absolutely fine, Mr. Chairman. I'm okay with that.
Okay, thank you. So then comes back to Councillor Glassford.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've seen and heard the whole debate. I am for this application.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I've seen and heard the whole debate, and on balance, I'm against.
Okay. Councillor Gibson.
Yeah, I've seen and heard the whole debate and I'm against.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
I've seen and heard the whole debate, and I am in favour with the options.
Thank you. Councillor Hendry.
I can confirm I've seen and heard everything, Mr. Chairman, and yes, I'm in favour. No problem. Thank you.
Councillor Facey.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Seen and heard, Chairman. I am for.
Thank you. Councillor Revens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I confirm I've seen and heard the full debate, and on balance, I'm for.
Councillor Kingham.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I've heard and seen the whole debate, and I am for.
And Councillor Bradford.
I have seen and heard the whole debate, Mr. Chairman. I am for.
Councillor Bolt.
Present for the whole debate, and I'm for.
Councillor Perry.
Yes, I've been present through the whole debate and I am for.
Councillor Grimes.
Yes, present for the whole debate, and I'm for. Thank you.
Thank you. I've also been present for the whole debate, and I'm also for. And Mrs. Nicholson, if we can sort out the numbers.
Sorry, my machine's gone on go slow, let alone anything else.
Right.
Okay, 11 in support and 3 against.
Okay, so that is clearly carried, so that permission is granted. Members, if you can turn in your papers to the reports, because that's the end of the applications that we have before us. So that the report 7.1, which is the planning appeals received. And I think, Mrs. De Vries, you're going to take us through these?
Yeah, just bear with me 1 second and I'll share my screen so you can see it in front of you.
Thank
so
you.
You should be able to see the appeals received.
Yep, we've got that.
Lovely. So we've got an outline application. It was refused under delegated powers, but it was for 165 dwellings on the edge of Cannington. It was just outside the settlement boundary. There is a permissive policy that would allow for it, and policy were generally in support, but it was accessed off of a cul-de-sac called Oak Tree Way. So County Highways had a number of issues with the vehicular access, so it ended up being refused on local highway grounds, but 3 separate local highway grounds under delegated powers. It's a Gladman scheme, and it's in for appeal, but we think it's going to be a hearing, but it's not got a start date with it yet. Any questions on that one before I move on?
Not seeing any indication yet, so
Okay.
carry on.
We've also got another one that was refused under delegated powers. It was retention of a first floor flat being occupied by a caretaker or security guard in connection with the business park. There's some ongoing enforcement history with that one, but that one's in for appeal as well.
Thank you. Again, I'm not seeing any indication, so on to the next one.
Thank you. We've also got an appeal in for Carrots Farm Shop, which is right on the edge of North Petherton. It was refused again under delegated powers for 39 dwellings. This one had a number of reasons for refusal. First of which being there isn't any permissive policies that allows for extensions on the settlement boundaries of tier 1 settlements. So it's contrary to policy. It's classed as countryside, and it's also within the green wedge sort of that stops the sort of accumulation between North Petherton and Bridgewater. So there was quite a few in principle issues and concerns. It's also next to a couple of listed buildings, so there was concern in terms of impact on the heritage assets, and there wasn't any information provided in terms of archaeology, so it was also refused on that grounds. One of which being insufficient information, they can probably provide that during the appeal process, but the other 4 we would end up sort of fighting through on appeal. Again, we're not clear on what the route is for that at the moment. They were wanting a public inquiry. We're trying to encourage the inspector to consider a hearing because it's less time intensive, but jury's out yet. We haven't got a start date. We don't know what the process is.
Okay, any comments or questions on that one from any members? No, so if we move then to 7.2, which is the appeals decided.
So appeals decided, we've got the coach house over the existing parking spaces, which was at 16 Cropehill Lane. This one was before members and was determined by planning committee. What I've actually done is I've taken a copy of the appeal decision, so 16 Cropehill Lane, and just sort of gone through highlighting the relevant bits for members. It was recommended by officers for approval, so it did go contrary to officers' recommendation for being refused. and the inspector considered the main issue being the living conditions on the occupiers of the adjacent properties because of outdoor amenity space and also character and appearance of the area. So the key issues was, whilst we don't have minimum outdoor amenity space standards, the inspector did consider under policy D25 the reduction in sort of the garden land of the adjoining residential properties was considered to be detrimental, and then because of how enclosed those amenity spaces were, that impacted on their usability and their quality, resulting ultimately in an unattractive and unacceptable impact on the residential amenity of the adjoining properties. In terms of the design and the development itself, again, another small outdoor amenity space. And again, whilst we don't have sort of policies to require minimum spaces, it was considered that the areas provided would be unattractive and therefore conflict with D25 and D2, with a sort of focus on a higher standard of amenity for new development. With regards to design, the inspector did say that designed with the mansard type roof to reduce its impact in terms of massing, and it had been reduced in size from that previously proposed with the architectural finishes, it was considered to be acceptable in terms of appearance, but with the lack of defensible amenity space, overall it would be out of character with the area in terms of layout, style and spatial positioning. So in crux, it was really the lack of amenity space for the proposal and the reduction in amenity space for the adjoining properties that resulted in it conflicting with D2 and D25. Any questions on that before I go on to the next one?
No, not seeing any.
Okay. So the next one was removal of a condition for an ice cream kiosk, basically allowing it to be sited outside of the front of quite a traditional building in a conservation area year round. It's currently required to be taken away out of season, so it doesn't impact on the setting of the conservation area. So the main issue the inspector identified was whether the proposal would preserve or enhance the character or appearance of Burnham-on-Sea conservation area. It was noted that the fish bar itself did have a modern entrance, but was considered to be pleasant and well proportioned, with 4 semi-hexagonal bay windows. And the kiosk had a modern flat roof, fiberglass industrial container style structure. And because of its position in front of the quite traditional building, it was considered to be intrusive due to the combination of the position, materials and the design, and therefore it wasn't considered to preserve and enhance the character. That said, the inspector did note there's a number of different modern designs and materials in the area, so it's whether the additional harm was considered to be outweighed by the public benefit, which is the next balance that he had to go on to. So it was noted there is some benefit in terms of the service to the public, but this is, the impact being applied for was to have that impact out of season when there would be less holidaymakers, and therefore the lack of damage and the motivation for applying for it from the applicant was that it would reduce damage to the kiosk, which wasn't in itself a material consideration. So it wasn't considered that having it in place out of season was a sufficient public benefit when you balance it against the harm. So it was considered to have an adverse impact on the conservation area.
Again, any comments or questions on that one? No, so we'll move on to 7.3, which is Section 106 agreements issued.
Yeah, we have issued an application for 109 dwellings at Cricketer Farm, Cannington Road. That was originally sort of a hybrid scheme, but it came in for a detailed development of 109, quite close to the listed buildings adjoining. It was quite a protracted 106 negotiation, but it's been signed off and issued now.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on that one? If not, I think that brings us to the end of our agenda for this morning. Couple of things just to mention, just remind members obviously that the East applications that we have are due to be taken on Thursday morning, so that will be on Thursday morning starting off at 9:30. I think Mrs. Nicholson, you wanted to have a word with members?
think Councillor Bradford's desperately trying to get hold of you. He's pressing all the buttons, but not the right one.
You're right.
Councillor Bradford.
I got your problem later this morning. Something in North Petherton this morning. I think every button just goes wrong. I'd just like to ask Dawn, so why doesn't that come before full planning? 109 houses. It's another survey then.